Mrs. Moasidia, even known, but I'm correct. Period.
Even heard Elon Musk, the creator, he had a big role in this. And actually, he left because he saw the immense danger that we're heading into. So how do you say that we don't let it get out of control? How do we do that? Like, how can we even assume that we can do that?
So what I will say is that we are too close to Juneteenth celebration to talk about Elon Musk or quote him. All right, so that's my first point.
The only reason why I bring him up, because he plays a very important role of it even existing.
Meantime, I'm in the leadership development program at the company. I have a mentor who is COO of the organization, and met with him every week. And he's like, Sundiata, I don't know. Usually I'm trying, I'm supposed to tell you how to act in a meeting and coach you in how to, respond to questions and even how to dress. You got me beat on that sort of stuff. So,
he said, wait. You said that landed us several times before, John. I love it. I love it. I can see you now. I'm attentive right now. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was just...
I want to get serious, or maybe not in your case.
Okay.
You worked for Sirius XM for 17 years and you were fired. Why?
Yeah, I was. So I'll give you a little bit of history before I can tell you exactly why I was fired. But
sure,
I started working for Sirius XM in 2004, and I was brought into the company to start the very first information security department. So I built that department from scratch. I came in and, started putting together all of our, requirements and needs as a publicly traded company. There was a new law that was coming into effect at that point, which was Sarbanes-Oxley. And that's a law that Congress passed that puts SEC in charge of ensuring the accountability and the financial and accounting books. That they have to be standardized and they have to be signed off, and there's a bunch of controls that you have to put into place. So when I started, I worked there for about 2 years by myself, just gathering and trying to build what I think my department should look like. And so I hired a brother who was also a Howard alumni. I didn't know him at the time, but he was the first hire that I made at Sirius XM. And together, until I was able to grow the organization, and it took about 3 or 4 years. So it was just two of us for many years building the department. And my first time out with SOC engagement, we were in tremendous success. And then all of these other standards were necessary for us to operate and to be the best in class, around our IT security infrastructures. I did that for a number of years, and then in 2008 we merged with Sirius Satellite Radio. At one point, it was just XM Satellite Radio and Sirius Radio, and we were in direct competition. And so the powers that be decided that, we would become one company, so we merged. So I led the organization again through, some very difficult times in terms of a merger and acquisition. Two very large companies with, the majority of the market in satellite radio, because there's no car, even back then, that you could turn on where it didn't have satellite radio. So again, we put our work together, our boots on the ground, and we did what we needed to do to make the company successful. And so some years later, about 3 or 4 years later, there became a position that was available in my department, and it was the vice presidential position for my department. At that point, I was a senior director, and struggled throughout the course of my tenure there for promotions for me and promotions for the brother who worked for me. And it was always, something always came up. Meanwhile, I'm watching everybody else, around the departments, around the IT department in particular, and in other areas of the company who had not been there as long as I or this brother had been, moving up through the ranks, and we couldn't understand why we were not being promoted. But, we are in positions in in this country, especially Black people in this country, wherever we work, whether it is corporate America or other places, always feeling like we are under the gun and under the threat of expulsion if we do anything wrong. And if we speak up too much, it's certainly going to be let go. But that never, scared me. I always spoke up about it. I spoke to issues around diversity, recruitment. We're in the nation's capital, but yet, every new person I see that comes into this organization doesn't look like me. And nobody's certainly above me because I was the highest ranking Black man in technology at that company for years. And I couldn't
the time period that you're talking about, what year did you start at Sirius?
I started in 2004. We merged with Sirius in 2008. And in 2012 is when the position of VP became available. And I just so happened that I was headed to New York. I had biweekly meetings with my management who was in New York. And on my way up, one of my colleagues called and said, "Did you see this position posted for your department?" And I was like, "What position?" So I pulled it up while I was on the Amtrak and, looked at it. So by the time I got to my boss's office, he said, "Okay, well, let's pull up the agenda." And I said, "Well, we can forget the agenda. I just noticed that there is a VP slide in my department, and I'm wondering, number one, is this the position description that I was, writing 3 months ago?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Well, I just want you to know that I'm going to throw my hat in the ring on the job." I said, because wait a
minute. You wrote the description of the job that you were now intentionally trying to apply for at that time.
I did, but did not know I was writing the position description. I knew that I was updating a position description. They wanted us to update. It was a departmental effort that we were supposed to update all of our position descriptions and the position descriptions for the people reporting to us. But what they did was they just added executive into those type. By the time this had gone out to the street, and so to make a long story short, I indicated to him that I was going to put my name in the hat for this position, and he said, "Well, yeah, but I want you to understand we're going to look, on the outside." And I said, "Well, that's fine. I'm not afraid of competition. I'd like to see who's going to be better than me."
But that's what a company does anyway, for the most part, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Some of them do. They do it for us.
Right. Exactly.
They don't necessarily do it. Usually everybody that I had come into contact with who had a position available was because they worked with this person and they didn't even have to advertise for the job. So I was a little suspect on the whole, process and position anyway, because it had been advertised and no one from the recruitment department had contacted me about this position, and I hadn't even spoke to my boss about it. So I sort of knew that they either have somebody in mind or I'm just not going to get it. In the meantime, I'm in the leadership development program at the company. I have a mentor who was COO of the organization and met with him every week. And he's like, Sundiata, I don't know. Usually I'm I'm supposed to tell you how to act in a meeting and coach you in how to, respond to questions and even how to dress. You got me beat on that sort of stuff. So to make a long story even shorter, I did not get the position. I wasn't interviewed for the position until they had already made an offer to someone. And I'm not even going to get into the recruit when I finally did get an interview. But they hired a white woman with no college education to be my boss. And that sent me for a loop and a damn near riot.
And at that time, what was your position at Sirius at that time, since you didn't get that job again?
My position was senior director.
Senior director, okay.
Senior director. So the next slide is...
Okay, go ahead.
The position was for a vice president.
Okay, so she got the vice president job, the white woman.
She got the vice president shit over me. Yes, exactly right. And, I tried to keep my staff calm because they were ready for a riot, but I did speak to the executives of the company about my disappointment, about, the way I was treated throughout the process. And I immediately filed a EEO complaint against the company. Part of when you go through the EEOC, you have to, sit down and have a conversation to see if they could work it out. And so we were able to work that part out. But what we were not able to work out is that, quite frankly, the woman was dumb. We got into constant conflicts, not because, I don't know how to respect management and management's authority, but I learned how to respect smart people. And I'm not going to, jump through hoops and do silly things because they have no meaning other than the fact that you want to feel like you're powerful and you can do it. So that landed us several times before HR, that we just not getting it together.
He said, wait, you said that landed us several times before HR. I love it. I love it. I can see you now. I'm attentive right now. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was just nonsense. Because one of the first things that she did was she stripped me of my ability to promote my staff, to even have my staff report directly to me, to participate in, determining what their bonuses would be and what their stock options would be. And then she started reeling that like it was her own personal bank account, and then hiring people, who came into the company, none of whom looked like us, right? Mm-hmm. And this was, acceptable to the company. And every time I brought it up to management, there was always some sort of excuse or that I was the problem and I'm not a team player. And I'm like, listen, this is what it is.
Can you repeat what she actually did? You said that she would actually something about stocks, like she would determine what their stocks would be, the employees?
She would determine, yes, exactly. So, in my position, because I manage people, I'm given a lump sum. And based on performance, which is how I did it, this is how much stock you're going to get awarded this year. This is how much your bonus is going to be this year. And here's your merit increase. She took all of that away from me and started doing it herself. And, and every conversation with the company was always me. You have to learn how to be a team player. This is the department. The company has put the trust in her, and she's the one that's going to do it. And, we just always ended up in HR, and they were like, well, the management styles may be different. And I said, well, of course, because I'm a college educated man. I know management. She runs the place like a white woman with a high school diploma, like McDonald's. So this is why the conflicts come in,
Not McDonald's.
That's what it was. I mean, she everything was about her. She was just a miserable woman to begin with. And then all of a sudden she kept, she would come into the office and say, well, good morning, children.
No, sir. Not children.
Good morning, children.
What?
And the first time I heard that again, I was in, HR. Like, okay, so here's what we're not going to do. You know what I mean?
Did wait. Did anyone respond to that?
No. Everybody in my department looked at me to sort this thing out. They're looking at me like
King Sundiata to figure this out.
Sundiata, okay. One of my brothers is like, I ain't gonna say that because I know you already halfway to HR. You know what I mean? So, but it was just things like that. There are certain micro stress that Black men face in this country, and I know with Black women too. I'm speaking just now of this experience.
That's okay.
But there are micro stresses that are unique to Black male existence in this country, and particularly for Black, men who are in corporate America. And these micro stresses are enough to kill you, literally. And so, we just kind of work through it and grin and bear it. And I would tell you, we do this not because, we are afraid of leaving or that we are a part of the system. We just know, like a lot of Black people do, that we are not only taking care of our immediate family, like our children, but we're taking care of extended family. We're probably, we're taking care of mom, we're taking care of dad, we're taking care of the sister, the nephew, the brother. So it wasn't easy for me. And I had 3 boys in school, and my projected forecast was get these boys to college. No matter what, you just deal with what you have to do to do it. And I did that for a number of years.
What do you consider a microaggression?
Microaggressions, like, you didn't do this, so I'm going to cut your bonus by 10%. When we had a conversation about it being done, but then you moved it off of my schedule, right? But one of the things that I always, and it's not even just that, it's just the way it's conversation, it's the way they talk to you.
I understand. I mean, I'm very clear on what a micro is. Some people may not, microaggression. So I just wanted to,
It's in speech and in, the determination of, when they feel like they are in control and the things that they feel they can say to you. And I was never that type of brother. There's certain things that you're not going to be able to say or do or treat people, because I don't do that to people. I treat everybody with dignity, everyone, until you show me that you're not worthy of the dignity I can extend. And then we get down to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just a very difficult time for all of us. For me, some of the Black folks left because there was just nothing that I could do. Management was not listening. Senior management was not listening, and executive management was not.
But didn't something happen between you and her in an office or something?
Well, yeah, because it was one of those situations again where, she said I said something, we were in HR and she said, well, he said this to me. And then I said, well, I didn't say that, I may have alluded to it, but I didn't say that. And, so she said it again, and one of the executives called her a liar. She said, now, I know Sundiata is a lot of things, but these are the kinds of words that would never come out of his mouth, right? Mm-hmm. And she said, well, he's this and he's that. And I said, excuse me, white lady.
Trying to attack your character.
My description cannot fit your tongue. You have no words that can describe me. So don't even try, And that was, it sounds like that was the beginning of many beginnings of endings with us. And so, ultimately she was finally fired because they'd done a 360 where we had to rate her. They got her an executive coach, which is something they don't do for Black people. If you've done something to cross the line, you're not getting a coach, you're getting the door, right? All the while I'm documenting all of this. I've known.
Wait, who got the coach? I'm confused. Sorry.
Well, the same woman I'm talking about with the high school education.
Right.
When we had to do a 360 review on her, and that included other executives around the company, her ratings were very low. And so they decided to get her an executive coach.
Oh, and she was a Black woman.
No, she was a white woman.
Oh, I thought you said Black woman. Sorry.
No. She was a white woman.
No, I thought you just recently mentioned Black woman. Sorry. That's why I asked you to repeat yourself. Okay.
Oh, no. She was a white. Okay. And so, meanwhile, I happen to know if it were Black people, we would not have been given or afforded that opportunity. And I had the evidence because I've seen Black women, be put out of the organization. I've seen Black men put out of the organization with just one accusation against, from someone else. So with this situation, she was all excited about an executive coach. And I said, this woman is so misinformed that she doesn't understand that they just put her on a performance improvement plan. And so, needless to say, she was fired. Needless to say, she was fired. They gave her walking papers, and I'm getting to a point because there's a whole lot that happened in between. Fast forward to the murder of Brother George Floyd, and all of the corporations around America, around the world, putting on this song and dance and pony show about all of these initiatives we have going on to increase minority visibility, minority presence, and minority recruitment. All of this is going on, and we're for the first time at Sirius XM having open conversations about race and racism in this company. And, so what are we going to do about it? So as this is happening, when she was fired, I was finally given the ability to manage my team. The one brother that I hired when I first started, right, had never won since she had taken over my rank, been promoted, not one.
How many years had passed? So that's a long time.
We're talking 2020.
Wow.
Never been promoted, right? So first chance I got when I was given back the power to manage my own teams is I promoted the brother. And I sent a congratulatory email to him and everybody in my department. It was 16, maybe 20 people in my department.
So he sat idle for 8 years, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In the meantime, so he sat idle, no promotions, no nothing. And so, meanwhile, again, people are coming into the department who don't look like us, who are white people, who are all being promoted, sometimes, twice a year. And so when I was able to promote him, I sent a congratulatory note to him, sent it to the team. And in it, I said, you have been a constant and consummate professional. You have held your head up despite many, courses of conflict you've never engaged in. You have been an incredible brother, an incredible co-worker and colleague. And I know that this small, because, they wouldn't let me promote him past senior, right?
Mm-hmm.
They told me, well, that's his next logical step. But yeah, but he's been in this position for 8 years. Why can't we go from manager, senior manager? And they wouldn't let me do it. So in my letter to him, I said, you should be far beyond what I am able to give you now. But but I know that your career has been shaped by institutionalized racism, bias, and favoritism. But now that the Band-Aid has been ripped from the wound, we'll see changes across the organization, at least for everybody. And that was the end of Sundiata. Sirius XM.
Yeah, you caused an explosion.
Yes, because suddenly I get a call.
What they don't
morning,
like.
And I'm sorry.
No, you're not sorry.
No, I'm not. I get on the call, HR puts a meeting on my calendar, and they say, well, management no longer trusts your judgment. And so we're putting you on administrative leave because of this email, and HR will get back to you tomorrow. And I said, well, okay. They said, well, do you have any questions? I said, no, but do you have any questions? I said, because this will be the opportunity for you to ask. I know what this is. I never asked how they got the letter because, nobody in HR got the letter. It wasn't on my distribution. So somebody in my department had sent that off to HR. I would later find out who did it, which really shocked me. But
that's usually the case.
Yeah, exactly. So they terminated me the next morning, and offered me a package which I refused to sign. I immediately hired an attorney. We went through months and months of negotiation and litigation. My whole idea behind this was to get me in front of a jury because I have nothing but documentation. I had so much documentation I had to go to the bank and take some out of my safe deposit box. That's how far and how much I had. And that's a lesson. We all have to document everything and never walk away from a conversation without sending a memorandum of understanding, an email based on our conversation. This is what we came to, right? Because even if they decide not to respond, that's an acknowledgement that they did get it with the receipts, and that they have to agree, because if they didn't agree, they would say so. So they just can't act like they didn't get it. But if you don't have a record trail, then you're done. So
wait a minute. This is a lot of information. So back in 2020, they came up with this idea, along with many other companies and establishments across the United States, to come up with like a diversity inclusion. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, they call it.
Hear the woos and the frustration or whatever because of the heightened climate after what happened to our beloved George Floyd. So they encouraged everybody in the company to discuss what they felt, and this happened to you. Okay, continue.
Yeah, they had many, weeks and weeks of these diverse conversations. They'd have some executives in a meeting and maybe 25 people, but they went through it. And it was black and white because, everybody needs to hear what our experiences were in the company. And, to me, I was really hoping that it would be a serious effort, but I also knew the company that I worked for. And I know that, they're very lawsuit adverse, so they wanted to do everything they could to look good in these magazines, one of the best places to work. And, one of the best places, to work for, minorities. And, they were looking to check boxes like most companies have. Because if you still look now at the composition of their board of directors, many companies, they haven't done anything in terms of recruiting black people, particularly. I'm not talking brown people. I'm talking black people, particularly. The same is the case. So I had an amazing attorney that I hired, to represent me. And just last October, it all was over at that point. And there's a lot that I cannot discuss because there's still existing litigation. But chickens have come home to roost at Sirius XM. And one of the things they will always recognize is that they should not have messed with me.
Oh, absolutely.
I intend to write a book about it, about this whole experience, because one of the important things to note is I signed no disclosure agreement, and I didn't sign, any, muffling, agreements that would prevent me from speaking up. It was not I would never sign over my voice. My grandmother was Ida Payne, and Ida Payne's grandson should never be silent. That's exactly the words that she used to say to me. You are my grandson, Ida Payne, and Ida Payne's grandson will never be silent. So I didn't sign any of that. So I'm going to come out. But again, there's some things that are going on now, not with me, but with others.
Right. I understand that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to respect that. Of course, you know that.
Oh, but it's going to be a whole nother show.
Oh, yes. Listen, come back to experience me. I'm telling you.
That's
No,
right.
I would love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So there were a lot of lessons that I learned out of that. You know, the corporate America is going to remain who it is. You know, they want to protect themselves and the power. There are many departments that are designed for people that are not really people focused. They are always protection focused of the company. If I were not so astute at keeping all of the documentation that I had, and I have my record and in my emails and email exchanges with 3 different CEOs of that company, where I had brought this subject up over and over and over again. So they can't say that I never said anything. I have been saying something, and that's what worked favor in this litigation. It worked absolutely in my favor, because you can't pretend you didn't know.
Right.
I'm telling you. And
So,
then on the other.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. No. Go ahead.
One of your contingencies of that, or one of your, one of the most beautiful thing that came out of that, one, you won. But the other thing is you're an alum of Howard University. Tell us about how that plays a role, Sirius plays a role in that.
Well, they don't. Because they have not done anything for Howard University. Howard University sits in their backyard about 6 blocks away, and we could never get a recruitment effort at the university that's really literally in their backyard. Sirius was, Sirius XM, I should say, the combined company was not interested in anything having to do with the promotion, the recruitment, or the development of Black people in their company. Meanwhile, 300 radio stations in that company, the most popular of which are all urban music stations. So they make money off us,
that's across the board, though,
That's right. But when you feel bad, when you pull back curtain and see what's going on in there, nothing but strife, even for the Black people that I left, at company. I'm fortunate enough that I could pull, my people.
Yeah, that's about to change.
Absolutely. And so I pulled, my team, my loyal team, the brothers that worked with me, who are now working with me in my new company.
Right. Before we go there, I just want to clear up the Howard University and the Sirius XM involvement. I was specifically talking about the lawsuit.
Yes, sir. So I donated a large part of my my money to start an organization, a scholarship fund in my grandfather's name for students who are in undergrad and graduate school to have an opportunity, if they are going to law school, to study civil rights law.
Wow. All right. And what is that called? What is the organization or the organization called?
It's called the Robert Alaye Payne Memorial Fund.
Oh, wow. Wait, what is it called?
Robert Alaye Payne.
Where's the Robert coming in?
Robert was my grandfather.
Oh, okay. You did say that. I'm sorry. Who the Robert I'm thinking about. Okay. We got to get to him too. But okay. So now that we cleared all of that, congratulations to you. Excellent. Phenomenal. I don't expect anything less from you on that. So big shout out to you as far as winning that discrimination lawsuit and anything else that comes out on the other side from your people that may be involved. I want to move on to your new role. I'm not even going to try to butcher what that title is. You're actually an executive over at another company, which we will not disclose at this time, just to, protect your environment. But can you tell me your title? You are you're the past, 20 years, you've been a information systems compliance officer?
So cybersecurity is really the focus. I'm in IT security.
Okay, IT.
IT. So it is the IT space, and that's the function at the American Red Cross and at FedEx. During the earlier parts of my career, including the Defense Department, where I started my career as an intern. But I've always been in IT and made the switch to security probably 20 years ago. And so I'm the head of information security, governance, risk, and compliance at the company that I am now. So the global head, because we're an international company. And so, my responsibilities are not unlike any other company that I work for. My position is to protect the corporate data, the information that the company has as, proprietary information, as well as any information that we have that comes from our customers and even our employees. So I'm charged with that responsibility. The governance piece, is international laws and standards that are designed to protect the privacy rights of people. Europe has a very intense privacy regulation that if anyone doing business in the EU must comply with, and they are very strict. Here in the United States, we have no federal laws around privacy. We have state laws, California and Massachusetts among the two that, have the most prominent, but there's no federal law around privacy in this country. And that's recognized by a lot of global companies and global nations. So EU has some very strict rules around privacy, and so that's part of what I do in the governance place. Risk is risk, right? We have to identify anything that's a risk to the organization, whether it's information technology that feeds out into financial statements, that feeds into forecasting, that feeds into marketing and ethics and whistleblower. All of that falls under that area. Mm-hmm. And the compliance piece is, there are international standards in cybersecurity, and you want to make sure that your company is abiding by these standards in order to make people know and make them feel comfortable that the company is really, in the business of security and making sure that we are top of the line in that area. We get these certifications, and so the compliance piece of my department deals with making sure that we're getting these things. So that really entails like security audits internally and externally, both by my team and by external auditors that we hire to do it.
Mm-hmm. So it's a different time since you started your career in that particular or in this particular role. So the different time, of course, is artificial intelligence. How are you approaching that with the company you are with now in order to combat some of, AI, artificial intelligence has its advantages, but of course, we know there's a lot of dangerous and adverse effects that a company and individuals can experience or that will affect our lives right now in this moment and even greater in the future.
That's right. How am I dealing with it? With a great deal of trepidation and a whole lot of bourbon.
You love that bourbon. Actually, you got me into that. I've been sipping on that every now and again. Yes, and I'm not even a hardcore drinker, but yeah, I do like the bourbon. But go ahead.
It will take you exactly where you need to be.
You'll burn your throat.
only the cheap ones.
Well, that's true. I don't deal with none of that when I'm hanging out with you, so don't even worry. We good over here.
Right. So artificial intelligence, it's been around, for a long time. Everybody knows,
sorry.
Or should recognize that there's some artificial intelligence in our everyday activities with things that we're dealing with other companies. For instance, when you call one, your phone, your cell phone company, and you have a question, and it says, well, there's a, chat. You can chat with an agent, but that agent is not a live agent. It's the AI behind it. So we deal with it, in that way in a long time. For me, I'm very apprehensive with it right now because, over the last 3-4 months, it's just exploded. And I work with a lot of very smart people, particularly our developers our engineers. And, engineers are just by nature, doodlers. They like to play with things. They like to, the newest toy, shiniest toy, they want to get in, they want to get into it. But there's some inherent dangers if you don't put the controls around its use. If you consider AI is like this big melting pot, right? So anything that you put into it, it is absorbed into its databases, and it becomes a part of its working knowledge, right? There was an incident just recently with one company. I don't remember which one it was. I don't know if it was Samsung, and I don't want to misquote it, but one company, their developers were trying to test some code, and they wanted AI to do it. So they put it into AI, and AI took all of its code, which is proprietary code that should never leave the company. And AI created user manuals. So anybody could go into AI and say, well, what's the user manual for the code on this company? And it was every secret on how they code their environments.
Oh, wow. And
those are just some of the largest risks that you can experience with that. There's a such thing as a public instance, and there's a such thing as a private instance. The private instance is an instance where the company has a contract with AI or any other, ChatGPT or Einstein, or I think the other one's Bart or Blatt, whatever it is. And you can have your own private environment strictly for your company where you can administer the controls around who has access. The public part is that you can go on to ai.chatgpt.com or whatever and create your own account. Just going to a URL. That's the part that education, at least in companies that are, accepting the use of it, have to understand and educate their people about. So that's my challenge right now. I don't think that we know that there's some inherent risk, but we don't know what they all are. There's certain things that should be prohibited. You start pulling out stuff out of artificial intelligence and putting it into your environment, and then you're dealing not only with, code that could be miscoded or code that could be wrong or even be malicious, but there's also the issues with who originated this code and is there a copyright on it? Because then we're in copyright violations, which means that the company could be sued because we're using a copywritten piece of code or information or a manual or something that we don't have permission for. So, the risks at using AI in a company environment are many, and we're still trying to narrow them down. And, my position is always locked down, to the degree that I'm able to. I don't want anybody to use it.
But how do you narrow down, how do you narrow down how AI is going to think?
Well, you don't.
Right.
What you do know is that anything you put into it, it becomes a part of the database. So that's what we do know, right? Mm-hmm. We don't know what the output is going to look like or who's going to ask for the output. We just know that once it leaves our company, we lose control. And if there's anything that's proprietary, we don't want anything that is the heartbeat of our company going into anything that could be public, right? When you talk about things like personal data or PII, personal identifiable information, your name, social security number, driver's license number, address, snail mail, again, because of the laws in certain places, we are at risk of heavy fineage and the loss of reputation if we suffer a breach. So, what we don't know, at least what I don't know, frightens me, which is why we're, all in to understanding what the greatest risks to these organizations are, particularly what the risks are to my organization. And until I can get a better understanding and a better, control environment around it, we're limiting to its use. You cannot use it in a production environment. You can only use it in a sandbox development environment that is segregated from our infrastructure, our security infrastructure, and our systems architecture. So the things that people can do to sort of minimize the risk, but we've got to get caught up because this is the world moving again. And I don't want to stop anything that's going to prevent the company from growing and using this technology, but only in the right way.
Yeah.
And so
they're saying, a lot of people, people that are very familiar with AI, are saying that if as a society, if we don't embrace AI soon enough or at all, like we have to embrace AI because we're going to be left behind. That's what they're saying. What do you have to say to that?
well, I won't take that sort of drastic position on it. I just think that there are really significant uses for it, but it has to be put under control. I think that
So Sundiata, like I've even heard Elon Musk, the creator, he had a big role in this, and actually he left because he saw the immense danger that we're heading into. So how do you say that we don't let it get out of control? How do we do that? Like how can we even assume that we can do that?
so what I will say is that we are too close to Juneteenth celebration to talk about Elon Musk or quote him. All right,
Well,
so that's my first point.
the only reason why I bring him up because he plays a very important role of it even existing, and he's the
Well, he's
person
not
that
the only
abandoned
one.
it. No, I understand that. I understand
Right.
that.
Yeah. So, so what I'm saying in the general terms, I'm not going to take a very, the sky is falling approach that, if you don't use it, it's going to be something that we'll get left behind in, because behind statements like that are always white men who are there to make money. They're not concerned about us being left behind. They're not concerned about how the technology is going to be used or misused or even not used. They're only saying that because they want the money. And they have no other interest than making money. So I'm taking a more practical approach. The first approach was to tell my boys, if you use AI to do a project or a paper, there's going to be a misunderstanding with us. You understand? You use your brain and you use your brain power. You're too close to coming out of college to take a shortcut to do anything you want. And that's why it was created by certain people. Yeah. White people love shortcuts.
Yeah, it's very scary for our children, Sundiata. Very, very scary.
We're
moving into an environment, a society that's not going to know how to communicate at all.
Well, that's already happened. Social media has already taken the ability for us to communicate. Even for our kids and even for people who are our age. When you look at people,
you did something with the phone where you sound slightly lower.
Yeah. So,
okay, there
can
you
you
go.
hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I think that social skills is something that we have already lost to a large degree, and hoping that we'll be able to get those back. Even with my friends, everybody's allowed 3 text messages, and then you need to call me because I'm not going to be.
Oh my, Sundiata, I can't deal with texting. I mean, call me old school. I don't care. I mean, I'm a communicator.
So the social impacts of artificial intelligence have to be sorted out first. Mm-hmm. It's never just a knee-jerk reaction to things that, we take. So my knee-jerk reaction would have been, shut it down. We're not going to use it at all. Which is what, the whole country of Italy did. They banned the use of artificial intelligence. And it was in effect for at least a month before, the commission came through and said, well, listen, we're not going to let one European state or country, rather, make a decision on the use of artificial intelligence and set a precedent. We're going to put a committee together to understand it. The Europeans have always been advanced in that way about, privacy and protection, and they know how to make things happen very quickly. We're very slow to do it on this side because, again, America is built on greed, and they're counting the money that they will either gain or lose by putting out certain messages to the country. So I'm not listening to those messages. I'm just, where I
respect
sitting.
that.
Yeah, where I'm sitting, I'm just looking at what I can understand about it, what I do need to know about it, and what the risks are, and how do I mitigate them.
Yeah.
And that's always been my position with everything that I have done.
Okay.
It was the same thing with the internet,
Well, AI this is the internet on friggin' steroids. So, yeah. Actually, probably even beyond that, because social media was the internet on steroids. So this is on a whole different level. But before we run out of time, not run out of time, but, we've been chatting for a very long time, and I love it. All this information. You're actually the longest interview I've had, which I knew it was going to take a significant amount of time. So that's okay. But I wanted to move into your fatherhood role, which is one of the most important things that we need to discuss right now. You have 3 boys, you have freedom, you have peace, and you have Roberto. I call him Roberto often, but his name that his mother, Crystal Hines, gave him is Robert. Please tell me about them and your role. And well, actually, it started with freedom and peace. Please tell me about your role and how you became to show them what fatherhood is.
Yeah, so they became my sons, legally back when so they're 22 now and 21. So Peace was 9 months old, and then a year later, I found out about Freedom, and then took him too. But this was all around the time that we met. When I met the boys, was through their mother. And it was during my time at the HIV and AIDS organization that I met them. And, it was a, very long and complicated story, but they ended up with me being a single father and raising them, a man who was, always very conscious, and conscientious, always wanted children. But, at that point in my life, I was really still swinging from the chandeliers, and overnight I became a father. And so, I had to kind of, reevaluate everything that I was doing. I had to call upon, the brothers and sisters in my, my chosen family, to help me get through some of this. I was working still full time. I was raising, the boys at that point, researching schools. And so, it wasn't just that I raised them. This was a village that I raised. And I kept, the sisters, present and around, because, there's always got to be the yin and the yang, the masculinity, and has to be balanced with the femininity. And so it was a real village that raised these kids. I'm proud to say now that, both of them are in college. Robert, graduated this past December from FAMU. And, the boys are at Norfolk State coming out. Peace comes out in December. And then right following that, my youngest, Freedom, is graduating in May of 24. So it has been a long and complex.
Exciting.
Exciting, yes. Exciting, lively, wonderful, privileged. That these young boys, came into my life, and I was charged with the responsibility of leading them into manhood and getting them off to where they needed to be. And it was not, it wasn't always easy. You have a girl who, again, I love, but raising young Black men in this society is very challenging. My boys are not with me, and I still worry about them constantly. I would always tell them when they were young that, first of all, nobody knows you. So I'm the only one, really, who thinks you're cute and that you're capable. But every time you walk outside this door, there is something seeking to destroy you. And when you are raising young Black men, you have to teach them these things because you have to teach them that fortunate. There will be times where you're faced with situations where you will lose your dignity and you will lose your humility, you will lose your temper, and you will lose your control. But what I don't want you to lose is your life. So however you're being treated in that moment, I just need you home. And I promise you, we can take care of everything in the morning, but I just want you home. And we have to teach them that. When one of the most nervous times was when, they were learning to drive and then having to worry, to teach them, if you get pulled over, you stop the car, hands on the wheel. I bought them all of the little things you put in your sun visor so you don't have to reach for anything. They had a speech. My name is, Robert. I have nothing on me or around me that can cause you any harm. My driver's license, proof of insurance is in the visor. You are free to reach it, or if you will allow me to, I will give it too. There's a wonderful app on iPhone that all you have to do is say, Siri, I'm being pulled over. It automatically sends 5 messages to your contacts and it cuts your camera on immediately.
Actually, you encouraged me to do that.
That's right.
Actually,
That's
I
right.
still have it on my phone.
That's right. It is one of the most important features of an iPhone. If I have to pay for an iPhone, it's one of the most important features that I needed these boys to have on their phone because I just need to know where they are and what they're doing. Now, this has become increasingly difficult because now, they're all smelling themselves. They don't feel like, when I call, they'll get to me. I just let you, Robert, the other day. I said, when me or your grandmother calls, that is the priority, period.
Right.
You can send a thumbs up to me and say, or say I can't talk, or a thumbs down that, thumbs up if I'll call you back, or thumbs down, I'm in the middle of something, and I'll know that means you'll call me back. But to just ghost me, son,
I know.
That's not happening. Because I worry, and he's in Florida, so my mind always goes different places, and I try again, I don't let these voices visit me often. But it's important that we stay in touch with our boys. It's important that they trust us, that our words are our words to them, that they can talk to us about anything, no matter how dramatic or stupid it may be. We are just here to make sure that we support. And that is my biggest, mention and advice to any father who's raising a child is just make sure that you build a loving and trusting relationship with them, and they will come to you for everything. And they will not be shy about talking about it. And it's so important. These young kids go through so much.
I know.
In this world.
I know. We could talk another time all day about that because that's our children today are at risk in so many different ways. I want to absolutely. I want to take the last 10 minutes, Sundiata, because and thank you so much for all of your time. I want to talk to you about your role with Robert, who I am very, very well aware of. Robert Hines was Crystal Hines's son. My best friend that passed away, and I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to break down like the last episode that I did with Miss Crystal Hines, unless you make me cry because you have a tendency to do that. But he is Crystal Hines's son, but you play a very important role in his life. And that was at the request of Miss Hines 5 years previous of her leaving this earth. Tell us about your association, please.
Crystal and I, met through my best friend some years ago. And just when I was trying to find a school to put the boys in for middle school, and we were at, Tony's house, and Tony's, my best friend here. And she was there with her girlfriend, and we were talking about kids. And she's like, "Well, I have a kid." And I said, "Yeah, well, I have kids who looking for a school to put them in." And she was like, "Well, I work at a school." And it was love at first sight from that point in time. And we just became very close. We just happened to live in the same area, not even, a quarter of a mile away from each other. And her son was my son's, age. And so we became very close, and Robert and I became very close. He became close to the boys and to my boys. And, he was always over here, when Crystal would be away on holiday or traveling for business. Robert would be here. So he was already a part of the family, so we were always familiar with each other. And Crystal and I would just get together, she would, call me and say, "Well, I'm coming over. Did you cook?" Or, "I'm bringing a bottle of wine. I'm coming over." She'd have her wine. I'd have my bourbon. But this one particular night, and this was many years before she passed on, we were talking about something just out of the blue. I don't even know what it was we were talking about, but we were laughing and joking. And then all of a sudden, she just grabbed my hand, my arm, my forearm from, as she was sitting across the table from me. And she said, "Promise me, if anything happens to me, you'll take care of my son." And I just sort of laughed off. I was like, "Krista, you're going to live 200 years. And then she grabbed me with such a grip that I had no choice but to widen my eyes and listen and look at what she was saying. Not hear it, but look at what she was saying to me. She said, "Promise me, if anything happens to me, that you will raise my son." And I said, "Well, of course, Crystal. I will take care of him, and I will, I said, he will be fine." Neither one of us, including you or I, or none of our friend circle would know that, she would leave us so soon, And it happened just after we had taken Rob down to FAMU, We had been planning this thing. We had Brighton, all the boys are going to get ready. Two of the boys, Robert and Peace, were getting ready to go off to college. And so, we did their, prom here. We did their 8th grade celebration here. We did everything together with the boys. And, we took, Robert down. I think Robert had to be down to school the week before my son did. So Crystal and I, Robert, flew down to FAMU and, got him moved into the condo and, the dorm and went shopping because it looked like it was a condo.
I know. That's why I'm chuckling.
Right. And so got him in and got him settled. And Crystal was just about to have a fit, because we had finished everything we needed to finish to get him, into the dorm, to, meet with the advisor and, and we had 2 more days to stay in Florida. And I was like, "No, Crystal, I'm about to go change the flights. We're going home." And I could see that, her eyes just was like, "I ain't ready to leave my child down here." But that's what we did. I told it was time to, cut this umbilical cord. Robert is going to be fine. And then I gave them some time, to say goodbye and, say what they were going to say to each other. And, she was fine with it. She knew that this time was coming, but I do know that no mother is ever ready for that time coming. Maybe different because for me, I was, shouting all the way down the highway after I dropped mine off to school. Mm-hmm. I was just like one down, and one more to go and I'm good. That was, in August and.
Mm-hmm. And then in March, 2019.
Well, fortunately they were able to see each other during the Thanksgiving holiday. Mm-hmm. And Christmas, she was engaged to be married. Mm-hmm. So Robert was, saw all of the good things that were going to happen and the things that she was looking forward to. But then in March 4th, I will never forget it because I was in Florida, another part of Florida, just taking my older brother off of life support.
I know oh my God, I forgot about that. Not that I, both, you had to deal with both of those at the same time. You flew back, right?
I did. I had to fly my sisters and brothers in. I had just talked to Crystal the 2 days before that, because they all got on a call checking on me to see if everything was all right. And, everything was fine. My mother was there. I had flown my mother in. My two sisters were there, and we said goodbye to my brother. But while he was declining, my phone was blowing up off the hook, but I couldn't answer, because I was in my brother's room. And, I decided that I needed to get some coffee. And so there was a call from Crystal's job asking me if I had heard from her, because she wasn't answering her calls. And I get a call from the school asking me if I knew where Crystal was, because she didn't report to work that morning, and she wasn't answering her phone calls from either the schools calling her or even, the personal phone numbers of these people at the school who she was very close to. So I immediately knew something was wrong. I called the police in DC and I asked for a wellness check, and then I called Tony and Daniel and Eric and asked them if they heard from her, and they were like, no. And I said, well, drop whatever you're doing. And this was morning, right? This is around 7 o'clock in the morning, and I told them something's wrong, so get to her place now. And by the time they got there, the ambulance had already taken her. And, they found her, they had to kick in the door, but they found her in her bathroom. She was, alive, but she was not conscious. So they got her off into the ambulance, into the hospital. The brothers followed the ambulance to the hospital, and, they called me and they said, well, they think she had a stroke. And I was sort of relieved, because I was like, okay, so stroke's not that bad, or if it's bad, at least she's alive, and, and we'll be able to work with whatever we're about to face. But by the time I got there, which was Friday, the doctor spoke to me and told me that, the aneurysm that she had was a very rare aneurysm, and that it had destroyed, a part of her brain that could never recover, and that she was brain dead for all intents and purposes. And so, the decision had to be made, to keep her on life support or to take her off of life support. And we both know that that was something that Crystal would not have wanted. In the meantime, I had gotten my brother's body moved to where my mom wanted him buried, next to my father. I had already contacted Tony and Daniel to tell them to get Robert home and get him there. Don't tell him anything other than there's been a situation with your mom and she's in the hospital. And that was all I wanted him to know at that time. So I get back here, and he's clearly nervous, clearly worried, and I explained to him in detail what was going on, and sat with him and the neurologist to explain to him what had happened to Crystal, that he would understand. And I remember very clearly the doctor saying if she would have had this aneurysm sitting right here next to me in this facility with all of this technology, there was nothing we could have ever done to her. And so, her mom was already there, and her sister and her brother were already there, and her father and stepfather, had already gotten there just that morning that I got there. And, we had a conversation about, what the next steps would be. It was a difficult decision to make, but she, was, brain dead, and she would never live a life, and she would never come out of that hospital or walk. She would need the breathing machines. And so the decision was to take her off of life support, and we certainly involved Robert in that conversation. And what, prolonged the agony was that Crystal was a donor. And, whereas a lot of people think of donors, they excavate the body parts, they put them in an igloo and ship them off in a helicopter. That doesn't happen. They actually fly the donee into the hospital. And so it took about 5 days before they could fly all of the people that she was donating organs to. And Crystal, literally saved 7 lives with her donation.
I didn't know that until just now.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Or maybe I don't know. There was so much of a blur going
There
on.
was so much going on, right? There was a lot. So, during this time, Robert and I, Robert just wanted to, he's like, the only thing I want to do, Uncle Cindy, is to dress my mother. And so I said, okay, that's what you'll do. But I involved him in every decision that we made from, he and I went to pick out the casket. Crystal's mother was just, completely stunned and immobile. So she just, said to me, I'm turning it all over to you, Cindy. And I said, I got it from here. So I, from the funeral home to the cemetery to, what she was going to wear, we took care of everything, to make sure that she went out, respectfully and gracefully. And so the night before the funeral, I go to Robert's room and we talking about it. And I said, Robert, your mother, wants you to be with me. And if you don't want to, I will understand. Everybody wants you. Your grandmother wants
I know.
you. Right. Everybody wants you.
Oh my God. Y'all was pulling them at the limbs.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And so he looked up at me and said, Uncle Sunday, for real? He was like, this has always been my second home. Where else would I go?
Right.
And
That's so cool. Oh my God.
Sealed the deal. Yeah, that sealed the deal. The only thing else that he was concerned about was Ziggy. He was like, well, can I bring Ziggy? And I said, Robert, you can bring any old little thing that you want to. Anything you want to. And so he's been with me ever since, and, it was Crystal's dream that she would,
Ziggy Marley.
Be able to. That's right, Ziggy Marley. And he's sitting right here with me right now.
Little Ziggy.
Stretched out. Stretched out on the sofa.
Love him.
So, we had, he graduated from FAMU with his undergraduate degree in psychology back in December. I had a big celebration out there for the folks who could come. And for those who couldn't, they know that June 17th, which happens to be Crystal's birthday, is going to be another celebration here at the house. And so everybody's coming up, the sister circle, you're part of that whole sister circle.
I'll be there, of course.
That I love the sister circles. They're all going to be here. They're flying in from everywhere.
I know. It's going to be so dope.
Oh my God.
Like no sleep.
Fun. I can't, no, you could already forget it. It's just not
it's going to be exciting.
And so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So Robert is, he had a little rough time in the beginning. I gave him the option, of going back to school or taking the semester off to gather himself. But he said, no, I want to go back to school. And so we flew him down, and we went to talk to all of the advisors for the classes that he had missed during that 2-week period where he was, dealing with the transition of his mother, and got him situated again. And, there have been some rough spots, but, he's managed to get through them and to cross that stage, and then made, he's captain of the track team.
He is?
The track team.
Oh, how did I miss that one?
I don't know.
When did this happen?
This happened in the second semester of his sophomore year. He became co-captain of the track team, and then
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's in graduate school, still at FAMU, and decided to go back for a couple of reasons. One is that he still had eligibility to run. COVID had pushed the track season back, 2 seasons. And then he has a wonderful, beautiful sister that just graduated last week with her degree in nursing from FAMU. And I just didn't think he was ready to leave her down there either.
Of course not.
He's there, and
you know how it goes, young and in love.
Exactly. And academics, his fortitude has been just amazing. I mean, he's on the dean's list, and still doing incredible things. He's such a beautiful soul, which is a reflection, of how Crystal really raised him. It wasn't hard work for me because she did all the real work.
Exactly. But, you do play a significant role in especially him healing from Crystal's passing and him getting through college. And you still, Sundiata, come on. You're kind of minimizing some of the stuff that you do for Robert. I have to list them all? I don't know if we
No,
have
you don't.
time.
No,
But yeah, you're absolutely amazing to my best friend's son. And
yes.
I've told you this so many times, but I'm going to say it while you're on Experience Me, and so that the world can hear it, that I thank you for stepping up to the plate to not just Robert, but you have freedom and peace. I mean, that speaks a lot about who you are, your character, and your dedication to ultimately change and or shift and improve these three young men's lives.
I do thank you for that. It's and I appreciate that, and I'm humbled, because the blessing is that I have been able to do it, right? That I had room in my home, and that I was able to to raise these boys and to and to guide them, and to just have the beautiful family of those that we've chosen to be our family, including you. There, I mean, and the job that you've done with your own daughter is miraculous, and she's doing well, and she's gonna be, someone that can, change, the world. And I'm just, particularly proud of you and what you're doing now, including this incredible show, and and the way you're moving in this life. I know that you lost your best friend, but I also do know that your voice was the last voice that Crystal heard. You were the last person to speak with her before she transitioned. And so, what a sweet voice to hear.
Sundi, that's where you're going to get me. Stop.
Well, it's the truth. And I couldn't imagine that she was not in good hands. When you consider the conversations that we have every time, and considering the conversations that we have with people that we don't like, to transition from this world, having spoken to you, as the last time is a memory I will never forget, that she was in safe hands, before she transitioned. So you have a lot to be thanked for. A lot.
She was my gift. Is my gift. I still feel her presence, so I know she's not physically here, but I get it. Sundiata, thank you
Naja,
for
thank you.
thank you. Say my name again. I like that.
Oh yes.
Go ahead.
Naja.
Yes.
Okay.
Feel the power behind that. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for being on Experience Me. I'm silly. You can't expect anything to come from me.
Right.
I'll be there on the 17th. Don't worry.
Oh, I can't wait for you to get here. We are going to have a ball. I'm looking so much forward to it.
I am too. Thank you so much for being on Experience Me, Sundiata. Naya Aliye, and thank you for listening. I'll see you guys. You'll hear from me soon. Thank you.
Thank you.